The rhythmic tumble of washing machines had replaced the precise rhythm of ballet combinations 20 years ago, but Natasha Petrov still moved through her laundromat with the ethereal grace of someone who had once floated across stages at Lincoln Center and the Metropolitan Opera House. Tasha, 64, sat in the sixth row of the Tonight Show studio, her dancer's posture automatically perfect, while her trained feet moved in unconscious fifth position beneath her chair. A small Spin Cycle Laundromat 20-year service pin on her simple cardigan caught the studio lights as she adjusted her position with the fluid movements of someone whose body had been sculpted by decades of classical training. To the hundreds of customers who had done their laundry at Spin Cycle over 2 decades, Tasha was just another hardworking business owner who somehow moved with unusual elegance and had an uncanny ability to fold clothes with artistic precision. What they didn't know was that their quarters were being collected by a woman who had once been a principal dancer with American Ballet Theatre and had performed with Mikhail Baryshnikov. What Tasha didn't know was that her story had been quietly circulating among ballet enthusiasts after someone had posted a side-by-side photo comparing Natasha Petrov, principal dancer, ABT, 1985, with a recent image of the laundromat owner gracefully reaching for detergent on high shelves with perfect port de bras. The post had gone viral among dance lovers who remembered the Russian ballerina who had captivated audiences in the 1980s before mysteriously disappearing from the ballet world. Tasha's story had begun in the disciplined world of Soviet ballet training, where young dancers were molded into artists through years of rigorous preparation that demanded physical perfection, artistic sensitivity, and unwavering dedication. Born in Leningrad to parents who were both musicians, Tasha had shown exceptional grace and musicality from early childhood, earning admission to the legendary Vaganova Ballet Academy at age 10. The training had been all-consuming but magical, 8 hours daily of bar work, center combinations, partnering, and performance technique that developed not just physical strength and flexibility, but the artistic expression that separated good dancers from transcendent ones. Tasha's specialty had been the dramatic ballerina roles that required both technical perfection and emotional depth. Giselle, Odette/Odile in Swan Lake, Aurora in Sleeping Beauty. When she defected to the West in 1983 during a cultural exchange tour, Tasha had been recruited immediately by American Ballet Theatre, where her combination of Russian technical training and natural dramatic instinct had made her one of the company's most celebrated principal dancers. For 7 years, she had graced the world's greatest stages, partnering with legends like Baryshnikov and performing lead roles that had defined her as one of the premier ballerinas of her generation. But ballet careers are inevitably brief, and a torn Achilles tendon during a 1990 performance of Romeo and Juliet had ended Tasha's dancing career at 30. The injury had healed, but not well enough for the physical demands of principal ballet, and at an age when most people were just hitting their professional stride, Tasha had found herself facing retirement from the only life she'd ever known. The laundromat had been purchased with her savings and settlement money from ABT as a practical way to create steady income while she figured out what retired ballerinas do with the rest of their lives. But 20 years later, Tasha discovered unexpected peace in the simple rhythms of a small business, finding that the discipline and attention to detail that had made her a great dancer served her well as a businesswoman. The Tonight Show tickets had been a surprise gift from her regular customers, longtime patrons who had appreciated not just Tasha's reliable service, but the inexplicable elegance she brought to the most mundane tasks, turning simple laundry management into something that felt almost like performance art. It was a Friday night taping in September, and Jimmy was in good spirits after interviewing a Broadway choreographer about his new musical. During his commercial break interaction with the audience, his attention was drawn to Tasha by her flawless posture and the way she moved with an unmistakable dancer's grace. "Ma'am, you have incredible posture and grace. Are you a dancer?" Tasha straightened with the automatic response of someone who had spent decades being evaluated on physical presentation. "I own a laundromat, sir. Spin Cycle here in Queens. Been there 20 years helping people with their washing and dry cleaning needs." A warm murmur went through the nearby audience members. Laundromat owners provided essential services to their communities, and 20 years of reliable business operation deserved recognition. 20 years running a laundromat? You must know every fabric care secret in the book. Tasha's face lit up with genuine pride in her service. Oh, yes, every fabric has its requirements. Silk needs gentle care. Wool requires special temperature. Dance costumes need particular attention to preserve their shape and movement quality. Dance costumes? That's an interesting specialty. Well, I understand how movement affects fabric, how costumes need to flow and drape to support the performer. You learn to care for garments in ways that preserve their artistic function. Jimmy noticed something in Tasha's language, a sophisticated understanding of movement and fabric that suggested personal experience with dance performance. Natasha, you seem to really understand dance from the inside. Have you always worked in laundry services? Tasha paused as if deciding how much of her background to reveal. Actually, I used to dance professionally before I opened the laundromat, ballet specifically, classical ballet for many years. The mention of professional ballet caught the audience's attention. Immediately, classical ballet was one of the most elite and demanding art forms in the world. You danced ballet professionally? What level did you perform at? Principal level with American Ballet Theatre. I'd performed lead roles in classical ballets, Swan Lake, Giselle, Sleeping Beauty, toured internationally, danced at Lincoln Center, the Metropolitan Opera House. Jimmy's curiosity exploded. Principal dancers at ABT were among the most elite artists in the world, and someone with that background running a laundromat suggested a dramatic story. Jimmy made a decision that would change everything. Tasha, principal ballet at ABT, is the absolute pinnacle of dance artistry. Would you mind coming down here and telling us about your ballet career? Tasha looked uncertain. Oh, I don't think people want to hear about old ballet stories. That world is very different from popular entertainment. Trust me, people definitely want to hear about ballet artistry. Come on down. As Tasha made her way to the stage, her movement was transformed completely. Every step a perfect beret, every gesture flowing with the ethereal quality that had once mesmerized audiences. When she reached the stage, Jimmy guided her to a comfortable chair, though she settled into it with the poised elegance of someone who had spent years being observed for artistic perfection. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy announced, this is Natasha Petrov. For 20 years, she's been running Spin Cycle Laundromat, but before that, she was a principal dancer with American Ballet Theatre. Tasha, tell us about your ballet career. Tasha settled into the chair, and when she spoke about dance, her voice took on the artistic passion and technical precision of someone who had mastered one of humanity's most demanding art forms. Ballet is about more than just movement. It's about expressing the deepest human emotions through physical perfection. Every gesture must be technically flawless, but also emotionally authentic. You're telling stories about love, loss, triumph, tragedy, all without speaking a word. The audience was completely quiet, understanding they were hearing about one of the most prestigious art forms from someone who had mastered it. What roles did you perform? Tasha's eyes lit up with memories of her artistic prime. My signature roles were Giselle and Odette in Swan Lake. Both require the ballerina to portray characters who experience profound love and devastating loss. Giselle dies of heartbreak, then returns as a spirit to save her lover. Odette is cursed to be a swan, able to return to human form only at night. What was it like performing with Mikhail Baryshnikov? Magical and terrifying. Misha demanded absolute perfection, but when you achieved it, dancing with him was like flying. He could make you feel weightless, make difficult partnering look effortless. He taught me that ballet isn't about showing off technique. It's about using technique to reveal truth. Jimmy reached behind his chair and pulled out a tablet loaded with ballet archives and performance videos. Tasha, we did some research before tonight's show. He showed her archive performance photos and reviews. According to dance critics, Natasha Petrov's performance as Giselle in 1987 was called one of the most emotionally devastating and technically perfect interpretations of the role in modern ballet history. Natasha looked stunned. You found reviews of my performances? We did. Listen to this from the New York Times dance critic. Petrov's Giselle achieves the rare combination of flawless classical technique and profound emotional authenticity. This is ballet artistry at its highest level. The studio fell completely silent. The audience was processing that they were meeting someone who had been recognized as one of ballet's greatest artists. Tasha, you were clearly at the peak of ballet artistry. What happened? Why did you leave dance? Tasha's expression grew more somber, touching on the physical reality that ended every dancer's career. Achilles tendon injury during a performance of Romeo and Juliet in 1990. The injury healed, but not well enough for principal ballet. At 30, my dancing career was over. That must have been devastating. It was like losing my identity. Ballet had been my entire life since childhood. Suddenly, the body that had been my instrument couldn't do what I'd trained it to do for 20 years. Jimmy leaned forward. But you never stopped being a dancer, did you? Tasha smiled for the first time since taking the stage. Dance lives in your body forever. Even folding laundry, I find myself using port de bras, maintaining turnout, moving with the musicality that ballet ingrained in me. My customers probably wonder why I fold towels with such precision. Jimmy continued reading from the tablet. Tasha, we found something else. Several dance companies have been trying to locate you to offer you teaching and coaching positions. Dance companies want to find me. Listen to this. From the current artistic director of ABT, Natasha Petrov was one of the most gifted artists we've ever had in the company. Her understanding of classical technique and dramatic interpretation would be invaluable for training the next generation of dancers. Jimmy stood and addressed the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this woman spent 7 years creating transcendent ballet artistry on the world's greatest stages, then spent 20 years applying that same discipline and artistic sensitivity to serving her community through honest business. He turned back to Tasha. The dance world wants to honor you. The American Ballet Theatre wants to induct you into their Hall of Fame, and several ballet schools want to offer you masterclass teaching positions. And Tasha's eyes filled with tears. They want to honor my dancing? They do. And Tasha, there's something else. Young dancers are studying videos of your performances on YouTube, learning from your technique and artistry. Jimmy had one more surprise. We have someone here who wanted to meet you. From backstage, Misty Copeland, the renowned principal dancer from American Ballet Theatre, appeared in her practice attire, carrying ballet shoes. Natasha, Misty said, approaching with obvious reverence, I've been studying your performances since I was a student. Your Giselle is still used in ballet schools as the example of perfect classical interpretation. You represent everything beautiful about ballet artistry. Tasha was openly crying now, overwhelmed by recognition from ballet's current generation of stars. You know my dancing? Every serious ballerina knows Natasha Petrov. Your performances are timeless. They remind us why we fell in love with ballet in the first place. You achieved something that very few dancers ever reach, perfect unity of technique and emotion. But Jimmy had one more surprise. Tasha, we know you can't perform full ballet anymore, but would you consider showing us some of the port de bras and movement quality that made you legendary? Soft classical music began to play through the studio speakers. Tasha stood with tears still in her eyes, and despite 20 years away from professional dance, her body remembered everything. Her arms moved through classical port de bras with ethereal beauty. Her posture maintained perfect ballet alignment, and for those few moments, the laundromat owner disappeared and was replaced by the artist who had once graced the world's greatest stages. The audience was mesmerized, understanding they were witnessing authentic ballet artistry being performed by someone who had helped define it during her era. When the music ended, the silence lasted for nearly a minute before the audience erupted in the kind of sustained emotional applause usually reserved for the world's greatest concert halls. Jimmy had tears streaming down his face. Tasha, that was pure artistry. How do you carry that level of grace and beauty and run a laundromat? Because beauty doesn't end when your career ends, Tasha said simply. Ballet taught me discipline, attention to detail, and care for craft. Whether I'm performing Giselle or helping customers with their dry cleaning, I bring the same dedication to excellence. As they helped Tasha back to her seat, she stopped and looked out at the audience one more time. Thank you for honoring my art, but I want young dancers to know ballet lives in your heart forever, not just on stage. Find ways to bring beauty and grace to whatever life brings you, because dance is about more than performance. It's about how you move through the world. The episode that aired became one of the most beautiful Tonight Show segments ever, sparking renewed interest in classical ballet and the artists who had defined it during previous generations. Tasha's story inspired several ballet companies to actively seek out former principal dancers for teaching and coaching positions, recognizing that their artistic knowledge was irreplaceable. Her laundromat became an unofficial gathering place for young dancers who came to learn from the legend who folded their costumes. Tasha spent her retirement teaching master classes and coaching young dancers while continuing to run her laundromat part-time. Discovering that leaving professional dance hadn't ended her contribution to ballet, it had prepared her to nurture the next generation of artists. At 66, Tasha still moves with a dancer's grace, still believes that every gesture should be performed with artistry, and still carries her ballet shoes alongside her laundromat keys. A reminder that true dancers never stop dancing, they just find new stages for their artistry. Because sometimes the most important performances happen not in grand theaters, but in ordinary places where former artists continue to move through life with the beauty and discipline that once made them legends, one graceful gesture at a time.